Good evening. Welcome to the Solari Report. For those of you who've been subscribers for many years, you know how the financial markets and businesses and covert industries are engineered. How can we have significant mortgage fraud on the trillion-dollar scale in this country, despite the fact that we have courts, we have enforcement agencies, we have the rule of law? And one of the things that's key to understanding the control in the system is to understand control files. And control files come back to systems of personnel benefits and systems of entrapment and corruption and control that is very much tied up with sex and sexual favors. I'm constantly looking for ways to help you understand the existence of the control file system. It's hard for people to fathom how these kind of covert industries and this kind of financial fraud is engineered. And I think taking a step back and understanding pedophilia and what has happened in this country with pedophilia can then be a very important background to understanding how control is engineered.
I was originally researching an article on the occult for a mainstream magazine, and I came across a U.S. Customs report about a group called the Finders that was seemingly trafficking children. And the U.S. Customs Service was called in because there was evidence of child pornography. And the Finders were out of Washington, D.C. So you ultimately had a 3 law enforcement entity investigation of the Finders for transporting children across state lines, kidnapping, and also child pornography. So you had the Tallahassee Police, you had the Washington, D.C. Metro Police, and also you had the U.S. Customs. And they served search warrants on the Finders' warehouses in Washington, D.C., and they came across a cache of really horrific pictures involving children and a number of other illicit items. And the CIA ultimately quashed the entire investigation into the Finders. All the child abuse charges were dropped, and then the children were given back to the cult. When I came across the U.S. Customs report, I was just stunned. First of all, the CIA shouldn't have any kind of power whatsoever domestically in the United States. And what are they doing coming to the rescue of some people that are seemingly doing some very nefarious things to children? So I tried to dig into the Finders to the best of my ability, and I just hit a brick wall. I mean, I just could not go further. No one was willing to talk. A number of people that were affiliated with the Finders, but no one would talk. And that's very difficult for a lot of Americans to get their mind around, that the Department of Justice and the FBI would cover up an interstate pedophile network. But this particular pedophile network was hooked up to some of the most powerful people in the United States. And because of garnering the sealed exhibits, I have over 200 of the network's flight receipts. And most of those flight receipts go to Washington, D.C. And in Washington, D.C., there was a party house that was owned by a Washington, D.C. power broker. And in that party house was two-way mirrors and audio-visual recording equipment. So anybody that partied there would ultimately become compromised or blackmailed. If the American public knew that children were being used to compromise politicians, I think that would have caused just a tremendous amount of outrage.